G'day, I'm Pete and you're watching Feral Fabrications. So the carnage continues working on this old Capri. I started chopping rust out of it, and as it goes the job always just gets bigger, eh? So where I'm up to is I built this new cross member to go in. You can see I did a couple of episodes on this. It's pretty much ready to go. It's just screwed together at the moment, but it will end up being welded. Was hoping to install that this episode, but have decided I need to redo my front radiator mount. Now the reason why, it was sitting quite low in the car, so low that these sway bar mounts had been clearanced so that the radiator could actually slot down and sit maybe a couple of inches, well, an inch below. Now the problem with that is it's weakened them. You can see that one's even split. So you know, and as well as the slotting job on this to adjust the suspension geometry, not the tidiest either. So these are basically scrap. And big shout out to Ian, who has supplied me with some replacements. So thanks a lot, mate. Much appreciated. Really hard to just find little bits like this, and a bit of a lifesaver. So thanks, Ian, for that. So I've got new mounts to go in. So that I don't have to hack them up, I need to lift the radiator up about maybe 1.5 inches, up to maybe 2 inches max. And that should just give me enough clearance between those suspension mounts and the radiator, so I don't have to cut anything. The other thing about that whole deal is the radiator filler neck is below the highest point of the engine, which means in theory you could get an airlock in there, which isn't good for cooling, so by lifting it up a wee bit, sort that issue out. I am wondering to counteract any disadvantage of sort of centre of gravity by lifting it up, by moving it back an inch could just counteract that a wee bit. The nose was pretty heavy in this car, so moving the weight back towards the centre probably useful. So just thinking about maybe sort of counteracting some of the negative effects of lifting it by moving it back a tad. So let's go check it out and see what we can do. Right, so I've got the radiator sitting in the original position, and I just thought I'd show quickly the issue with the radiator where it is currently. So these are the sway bar mounts. You can see the sway bar here, the bush sitting there. So that would normally sit there, and you can see how it's been clearanced to fit that radiator. So that's the issue I want to avoid by lifting the radiator up. It looks like I need to lift it up about 1.5 inches. Okay, so here was the issue with the radiator filler neck. That's at that level, and we come across, you can see the thermostat housing there is probably 1 inch higher, and that radiator hose is actually like swooping down. So not ideal, because there's potential for an airlock in there. That's a bonus. By lifting it up to clear those suspension mounts down below, we fix that issue. The next thing I want to do is change this top radiator mount. It's really useful how they've done it to take the radiator out really quickly. It's just, you know, undo these screws here. The whole thing comes off, and then you can just lift the radiator out. So I like how that has been done, but I don't like how this bit is just straight up and blocks off the radiator core here. So my one, when I redo it, is going to be on an angle up to the top of the new position of the radiator. That means I'm going to have to redo these side mounts as well, which is fine. Happy to redo everything. This stuff's actually done reasonably tidy, but I would like to just flip it around so that that sharp edge faces inwards. I think it'll just look a little bit more finished. And I don't really like having sharp edges where you're working. Having it pointing in the front there, you're never really going to be in that part of the car. So that'll tidy that up. I'm going to go about this by putting the new suspension mounts in down the bottom, sitting the radiator on those with like a 10mm packer. That'll get my level, and I can check that my radiator isn't going to foul the bonnet, particularly the radiator cap, and it is in line with this gusset of the bonnet, which is a little unfortunate. You know, if your radiator cap was here in the middle, you'd have plenty of space, but it will be in line with that, so we do need to be careful with how high we lift it up. So let's get stuck in. Yeah, I got both mounts in now, you can see them down there. Radiators, I'm just sitting on top of some 5mm steel packers underneath the mounts, so that's just basically the minimum height it needs to go up. And it's not looking too bad. Pretty similar height to the alternator, just a tad higher. Radiator hose looks nice and level now. I've just got it spaced off the alternator pulley just because it wants to flop back without that top mounting. But now we're going to see if the bonnet can shut without basically fouling that radiator cap. So might even leave the GoPro under the bonnet for that, and let's check it out. Ooh, it's close. I think we're golden. Right, so there we have it. I think that'll be the final position for this radiator. The only thing I might do is just roll the top of it a little bit back, probably only 10mm or something. That'll just give me a little bit more clearance to the bonnet. As this comes back, the guard's actually rising up, so you get more clearance by moving the top of the radiator back slightly. So I think I'll do that. Other than that, I'm going to hack out these old mounts and use them as templates for the new ones. I'll also get in there and tidy up any old damage or sort of half-assed repairs. You can see some pop rivets through there. I think all that stuff can just go. And also one little hole I need to patch up on that guard there too. So while I've got the welder in here doing this stuff, do that as well. Okay, let's get stuck in. Okay, so I've finished hacking. Got the old radiator supports out here, and going to replace this piece of, it's a previous repair, it's not original. It just wasn't done very tidily, like it didn't have any folds on it. It was just sort of tacked in, so a little unusual, so going to tidy that up. And just a bunch of bits from trimming and getting everything nice and tidy. And that was a little bit of a repair on that piece there on the other side. So I'll show you what the car looks like now. Alright, now that I've cut that old repair out, you can see the original metal was still sitting in there behind.
and they're just sort of tacked on top of it. I'll probably butt weld up to that there instead with my new piece, and then take it all the way down to the bottom and tidy it up that way. It'll come out and form the new radiator mount, so hoping to do that more or less in one piece. Certainly complicated things a bit taking that old repair out, but just thought it was worth it. It just wasn't really up to scratch, so we'll get that tidied up. This side, and there is still a lot of original metal here. I think someone's put a hole saw through there at some point and run the headlight wiring through there, but not convinced that's the right spot. I wonder if it's meant to run through here. So any Ford gurus, if you can show me your headlight wiring, that'd be handy. And yeah, it goes all the way down, sort of halfway through that there, so that actually needs to come out to about here to get that all back to original, or as close as possible. So looking up underneath, you can actually see where the original radiator mount started. So it's been widened a fair bit out to about here. It'll fit the larger radiator. The only reason I haven't taken that out of the car is because I'm actually going to replace it. It's got some damage, so I'm going to just buy a new one and do it that way, because it probably needed a clean as well. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. Pretty big hole I've cut. Definitely going to take a while to fill it back up with metal. So join me next episode where we actually do some repair work. Hopefully. Maybe.